The Xbox price hikes are here, and let's talk about it. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to is called Xbox Pushed Us Past the Point of No Return. Link to the original video down in the description below. If you like the conversations, reactions, and discussions we have here on this channel, consider subscribing. Drop a like for the YouTube gods. Let them know we're doing something right. But more importantly, get your keyboards ready because I want to hear your thoughts in the comments on anything we talk about in this video.
Today I've got a banging proposition for you. So, do you want to spend $80 for new games on a console that nobody wants? That seems a little bit insane, but it's actually what, Xbox have just dropped on us with their new global price hike. Now look, I expected $80 to eventually...
And to be fair, it's not that nobody wants it. It's just there's no point to it, right? Like look at it, any of the, so like if you look at it on paper, stat per stat, the Xbox Series X is a better console than the PS5. But none of the games Xbox, like none of the Xbox exclusive games or games that released, or let's start with the Xbox games. A lot of them weren't exclusives, right? So you don't really need the Xbox. Second of all, the ones that were, a lot of them were janky, didn't really push the graphics at all, or just weren't good games. So it's like, why have the craziest amount of hardware if there's really no point to it? So it's not even that nobody wants it. I think as someone who owns a Series X, I want this console, but it's just there's no point to it. And then you have the Series S, which it's funny, like when it first was announced, I made a joke that watch this be the better console of the two. And I still agree that the Series S by far per value is way better than the Series X because there hasn't been a game that requires me to actually care about having an X. So I just think I want to be fair here, but obviously it's still Xbox's fault. It's not the customers for not wanting it.
Become the new normal for big AAA games in the next console gen. I was wrong, it's sooner. Nintendo obviously moved first with their Mario Kart pricing, but now we've seen Xbox follow Nintendo.
Which I was wrong too. I actually made, I mean, people were talking about it a while back for certain PC games. I made the prediction that it wouldn't happen unless Xbox didn't see any success, but I was making it as a joke because I was like, there's no way they can't be successful. This is before we realized what the greater issue Xbox was having, because at the time that these consoles were being announced, they had a huge lineup of games that we were looking forward to. And turns out almost like 80% of them haven't came out yet, or came out to being shit, or were just not good, or just super mediocre. Game Pass is really losing its value because it's becoming more expensive. But also, a lot of the games on there go on sale pretty regularly, so it'd just be cheaper to, like, more, I wouldn't say cheaper, but just better to just buy them, so you don't have to be like, oh, keep paying every month for something that you might not use. I just, it was crazy to see how much goodwill Xbox had, and they just threw it away because Phil Spencer decided to spend his shit on like random DEI and a lot of bloated initiatives that just wasted money and then led to them firing a bunch of developers, which, by the way, a lot of these developers that they hired were dog shit developers anyway. So I don't really feel bad for them.
Lead, but it's not just for the video games. This price hike has hit absolutely everything, and it reveals Microsoft's strategy. Take for an example the Series X. Why would you spend even more money on an Xbox now that the games will also be released on every other platform, especially when the Series X is now more expensive than a PS5 or a handheld PC? So we're all starting off on the same page. Xbox's last decade was a barely mitigated disaster. Okay, Game Pass was there to salvage their corporate narrative, but Sony utterly destroyed them 2 generations in a row. Reports even suggested that CEO Satya Nadella considered pulling out of games, culminating in a decision being made. On the one hand, pull out. On the other hand, double down. Satya chose the latter. We do know, of course, that he spent over $76 billion on Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. Now, at the time, we thought that was all to get them more exclusives, ideally so that people would finally have a reason to buy the Xbox, because obviously, well, didn't really work out with Halo Infinite. And perhaps that was the hope, but it was a fool's hope. That obviously didn't happen. Xbox is still behind, and that brings us to the modern, post-massive layoffs version of this company.
Which is crazy because when they acquired all these IPs, what they should have turned around and did was announce the games that they were going to revive. Like even if they were like, I'm against like after seeing how they announced like Skyrim, Fable, all these games like 5 or 6 years before they're even close to being ready. I'm not a fan of that. But when you acquire a game or a studio and the properties of Activision Blizzard, what they should have done was immediately say, these are what we're planning to do. Why we acquired this is to do this, right? Rather than just being like, oh, we bought this, now we have to lay a bunch of people off because we're not making any money.
Xbox are releasing games, and the thing is, players actually love them. I mean, right now, Indiana Jones and Oblivion are on my PS5. I'm happy with them. And if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you've also just got Expedition 33 and Blueprints. That's kind of wild. So basically, be it
Oh, I didn't even know Expedition 33 was on Game Pass. Maybe I need to bring it back.
Game Pass, PS5, PC, or streamed to your television, Microsoft's got actually good games absolutely everywhere. And they're happy to make money from that, even if it means that they also are lining Sony's pockets, which they absolutely are. I don't want to shock you, but basically, this is Microsoft deciding to finally focus on selling software and making their money there. And it's with that in mind that we now dissect the price hike. Let's start with the most relevant increase, that to the actual games. So prices are going to increase for some new games to $80 later this year. And this absolutely is peak never waste a good crisis energy. Basically by doing it now, by announcing it now, they're kind of hoping to avoid sticker shock later. And only some games are impacted here. Call of Duty's the obvious contender. I'd say the big Xbox IPs like a new Gears of War game or the new Fable game, those will probably be $80. Though let's be.
But do they deserve it though? I mean, probably Gears of War for sure, but I don't know. A lot of the quality of these games. But I do think it's interesting that he did say that that's them announcing it right now was on purpose. I didn't even think about that. I just thought they just announced it right now because they thought, well, I mean, Nintendo's doing it, so we have to anyway. Which, I have my thoughts on Nintendo. Never been a fan of Nintendo as a company because they kind of do some scummy shit all the time and people eat it up. But I guess it's not really Nintendo's fault. It's their customers.
Be real for a second. Just look at Expedition 33 and what it was able to pull off for what? $49.99? It cost 45 quid in the UK, so that is a hell of a deal for a video game. Now, if you're to take a more AA feeling Microsoft game like, say, Outer Worlds 2, if that was to hit $80 in a world where
nobody would buy it.
33 is like just over half of that, that's pretty rough. I have to wonder if a lot of these companies are going to start pricing themselves out of the market, and if it is the case that actually this $50 price range is going to start working really well. But anyway, that's the software price hike. Now I've got to talk about the hardware. These increases, to put it rather bluntly, just feel like an execution to me. And that's because, unlike PlayStation and Nintendo, these are not restricted to any one set of regions, right? This is impacting the USA, Europe, UK, Australia, and unspecified other regions. They'll all see an increase, but I'm just going to use the US here as our working example, because there's actually a twist to that I'll get to in a sec. Now, the Series S costs $80 more, and both digital and disk drive Series X's get a $100 increase.
So let's see this. I gotta move my camera out of the way. Okay, so Jesus Christ Almighty. Yeah, this is crazy. But also they're adding more storage to them, which I wish they would have done originally. But at the same time, it's like for more storage for what games? It's kind of ironic, right?
That means that the Series X is $100 more expensive than a PS5. And I mean, man,
for what?
About the Series S, that was already a tough sell given the limited performance of that machine and the low amount of storage that it ships with. $80 more on that? I struggle to make sense of that.
That's when that doesn't make any sense to me. The reason why this console to me is by far the best console is because it's so cheap. There's so much value to it. But the fact that they're like destroying the only advantage that this really has, I mean, I guess it's still cheaper than everything else, but it's like, That's what made this extremely attractive. Now you're just kind of shooting it in the foot for no reason.
Just buy a PS5. Anyway, base controller models are spared, but the special and limited editions are going to be $80 and $90, and then the Elite controller gets a $20 increase to $200. That's
Oh my
a lot of
god,
change.
Jesus
And the wireless
Christ!
headsets are going up $10 to $100.
Like you could buy a whole console for the price of an electric Elite controller. Like I don't know. I've never been a fan of that. I have bought in limited edition controllers before, but it was because like I really like the way they actually actually fit in your hands, because some of them have grips and stuff. And this was before the Xbox Labs was fully customizable, because the Xbox Labs was out for a little bit, but they didn't really have all the options that they have now. So, if I'm gonna get a controller, I'd rather just get an Xbox Labs at this point.
And $20. So basically, ouch. And unlike with PlayStation, where they decided to defend their competitiveness in the US by only having the price increases elsewhere, these are actually hitting the US. And in terms of percentage increase, they're actually hitting the US harder. There's a fairly obvious reason why. So, yeah. Let's just go explain that. When asked if tariffs are to blame, Microsoft actually declined to comment, but let's be honest, we all know that's going to be part of it. And I mean, you could say, right, we're 5 years into the generation. Maybe this is Xbox actually wanting to increase prices because, you know, global economy, inflation. Maybe they want to set expectations for next time round so people don't get sticker shock at, I don't know, the Xbox Series X2 or whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah, and this is where my opinion is. I think people are throwing a fit about the tariffs. To be honest, like it's a net positive, I think, in the end. But I don't want to debate all that. The reality is, Xbox, it's their responsibility to figure out how they want to price things. And we as customers, we can complain, but at the end of the day, you don't have to buy this Xbox. You don't have to buy it. So why are you crying? If you were, yeah, $100 more, it's more expensive. But if we don't buy it, sure, okay, that's not the end of the fucking world. But that's on Xbox. It's not our fault that we don't want to get it. So if they don't want to eat the price, we as customers have no responsibility to them. But at the same time, as us as customers, we don't have to buy the console. So if you're crying about price hikes when it comes to consoles, like I don't know what to tell you. Like like it's a video game console. There's more important things in the world to be crying about.
But no, the tariffs are almost certainly part of it. As an example, analysts like Daniel Ahmad point out that under the current tariff rules, the Xbox consoles would be facing a 145% tariff cost after being imported from China. And
like this, for example, they're manufactured in China. If it falls on the responsibility of Xbox to understand that like the world is changing and people want the consoles to be manufactured, or jobs to be manufactured jobs to be manufactured, or manufacturing jobs to move to America or back to their home countries. Not just America. There's other countries feeling the same way too. So if Xbox wanted to just cut corner, they're the ones that have been cutting corners for a long time. So it's really just them reaping what they sowed. So at the end of the day, yeah, it sucks for the customer, but at the same time, us as customers, if you're crying and complaining over a console, of a video game console, come on now.
And then the physical discs for games, which are imported from Mexico, well, those are still going to face a 10% tariff. All that shit adds up, and as for why everyone else in the world would have to go up as well it's fairly obvious. It's to cushion the American changes, because they're probably not going to pass on literally all of the price increase, so they'll, increase everyone else as well, and basically to avoid backlash, which is to say, if they were going to retain their margin on what they sell in America, and they weren't to do price increases elsewhere, the American price would have to go up more than it is. So basically, everyone gets a price rise in order to subsidize the American one, so it's not as high as it would otherwise be. Obviously, some of that's directly because of tariffs. I think we could also say maybe, right? Maybe Microsoft don't expect the 145% tariffs to increase, but they're basically saying, listen, there's uncertainty, there's chaos, and we don't want to waste that chaos. We should increase our RRP. That'll defend our margins long into the future. And look over there. Nintendo is obviously doing it. PlayStation is obviously doing it. If as a whole industry we just increase those numbers, then we all defend our margin. I think that's basically what's going on.
And this is why it's like like a lot of the conversation around this is really annoying because people want to just blame Trump for this. Not that I'm defending him, but at the same time, it's like these are companies, these are corporations. They were gonna, if this was a different president, they would be doing the same thing in the exact same situation. So it doesn't, these people these corporations don't have loyalty to their customers. They really don't. They just want profits, more money. So if they're able to increase the price of their consoles, say let's say even match inflation regardless of who's president, right? They're going to take any opportunity to do that. And I honestly think, in fairness, this is probably the best time to do it because high inflation and the tariffs. So they have plenty of people to blame rather than themselves. But I still think it's these companies who are to blame because they should have remained competitive. It's their job to remain competitive with a competitive product, right? Because if you take away this whole nonsense about the price increase on the Xboxes, these Xboxes weren't selling at the lower price anyway. So who we blame Harris for that? No, we're blaming Xbox for not giving us games worth playing. Like it's just this whole notion is just it's just the whole conversation is just pretty retarded. But then again, like I don't know.
But here's the thing, with this generation of consoles, stuff's actually kind of different. So in the past, we had, well, let's just say less things competing for our silicon wafers. And that ultimately meant that with your Xbox One and your PS4, they were able to slice the prices of them down year after year after year. That has not happened this time around. It's widely reported that margins on the modern consoles are extremely thin, and you'll actually notice we are seeing less discounts and less deep discounts this time around than we did last time.
Yeah.
Now, some of that's because, let's be real, there's not much of a competition. If you're Sony, why would you do a massive price gouge? It's not like Microsoft are really nipping at your heels. But even taking incentives like that into account, it absolutely does seem the case that no, the margins are genuinely thinner. That's rough for profitability. It's why we see these price hikes, but it's also in line with Microsoft's thinking. You see, the consoles they just price hiked weren't selling well at all, and to get an understanding of how badly, well,
exactly.
Unfortunately, all of this news directly followed Microsoft's discussion of their financial results, so we can dig into their finances and see just how badly hardware's been going. All of this happened hours after Microsoft briefed their investors in their Q3 reporting. Basically, that's where they reported that hardware in particular was just having a battering, and according to the reporting in the earnings call from Windows Central, their sales for hardware decreased by 6%. And the sad news for them, right, is that this is actually a slower decrease than previous quarters. So, silver linings and all.
How ironic. The tariffs, slower decline during the tariffs. Isn't that crazy? But, people are going to be retarded on the internet. So that's what I'm saying. Like this whole conversation, to me, it's like it shouldn't be like if you're genuinely retarded and just can't see how things are in the bigger picture of things, like at the end of the day, this is the company's fault. They didn't position themselves to be competitive. They didn't position themselves to provide value to their customers. They didn't position themselves um like they shouldn't blame the customers and they shouldn't blame the world around them for not being a good company. This is Microsoft, right? This is not some Joe Schmo guy selling hardware to power tools at like a local store. This is Microsoft, right? They have the money and the resources to be one, to be flexible, and two, to actually maneuver and position themselves long before any of this has happened. Like the fact that they were failing before the tariffs, like the people need to realize that like everything is just much worse because of that. But it's the compound real issues come with Phil Spencer and that whole leadership over there wasting money on dumb shit. Acquiring, okay, yeah, Activision Blizzard was a good pickup, sure. But what are they really doing with it? Like the fact that WoW is not on consoles yet, to me, is retarded. Actually, stupid. Like that is the easiest slam dunk for them. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But to me, that would have been the easiest thing to do is to move that to Xbox. Imagine how much growth they could experience on that. Like it's just there's so many easy wins that they could have done, but instead they're pandering to like do this all this random shit and make shitty ass games. But I mean, Game Pass again could be a good thing, but to me has lost a lot of its value. Because it's all games I've already played or games I already own.
And basically, that is the definition of damning by faint praise, I would say. It's like, hey, we're bleeding out, but we're bleeding out ever so slightly slower. Obviously, if those sales were declining, I have a feeling that the price increases will just make them decline even more. But elsewhere, PC Game Pass users grew 45% year on year. That's pretty goddamn substantial. Their cloud gaming reached new record usage counts with 150 million hours streamed, and that all contributed to a wider 8% growth for the
Again, that's like honestly, that's the funny part is like out of all the thing, out of the only thing that I used out of Game Pass was cloud gaming. Because I have a Steam Deck, so it was able to stream into my. I figured out how to get it to stream to my Steam Deck, but it's not really. It's like an Xbox product, yes, it's a cloud, but I was playing on my Steam Deck. You know what I mean? Like it's not the Xbox handheld that was rumored to be coming out. Like if they had that before I got my Steam Deck, I would have been playing on that. But there's just it seems like I don't know. I do hope that maybe Xbox becomes competitive because I do want more competition in the marketplace. Right? Like I'm not gonna like I don't want to pretend like I'm just gonna be shitting on like I don't want like I don't care about these companies. First of all, they're just companies. Don't care because they don't care about me. But at the end of the day, I don't want Xbox to fail. And I'm not just shitting on Xbox because of that or just shitting on Xbox for the sake of it, but I do actually want them to be competitive. One, because they hold a lot of IPs that I actually really like. For example, Fable. I actually really like Fable. This channel used to, I think, still has a couple videos up about Fable, but a lot of them I took down because we switched niches and now we're doing reaction and commentary content. But I just think, more competition better, more competition good.
the content and services element of Xbox. And that really is the big one. In particular, this was likely driven by Xbox becoming, quote, the biggest publisher in PlayStation, which is absolutely true, with, say, Call of Duty alongside the ports for Indiana Jones and Forza driving loads of growth there. And that basically means that their non-exclusive model for games is actually working. And that's with them barely digging into their library. So in this context, the pricing changes actually make even more sense. So basically, I'll put it this way. If hardware is underperforming and it's only selling to the most hardcore audience, then that's maybe the group of people who would be able to stomach the price increases. Perhaps the most price and value sensitive customers have already made the call not to go Xbox. Like everybody, they probably just saw that PS5 was going to be dominant, so they backed the winner, right? Which would make sense. Now, there's no point in producing a machine that you're going to be selling at a loss if you're not selling it in the first place. The whole business model with consoles, selling at a loss, being a loss leader, is you grow your store, right? And then you get the 30% of everything you sell on that store. With Xbox being small, there's just less of an incentive there for Microsoft. I mean, you could even say there's a justification for increasing the price of the Series S after games like EA College Football, in fact, drove sales for it massively. There could be that. Then with the release of the Switch 2 at $450, it does actually mean that the cheapest way to play those games is still on a Series S, but it's only by $20. Let's be real, it's a Series S. Anyway.
But I also think like the people who are buying a Switch 2 are not like dramatically not the same people buying a Switch 2. Like they're the Xbox, though that clientele was completely different, right? Um, but I look, I don't want to judge the Switch 2 too much because I had a Switch, thought it was one of the worst consoles and purchases I've ever made. But at the same time, depending on the exclusivity of games, I mean, the Switch 2 does look good in that field.
The growth of the platform in PlayStation,
they're getting GTA 6 apparently, or the rumor is.
Though, that justifies price increases for the likes of your Call of Duties. Even with PlayStation's 30% cut of sales, think about it this way. $56 out of an $80 game is a lot better than $49 from a $70 game. And if it's something that you know is going to sell like crazy, like Call of Duty, then hey, it's really easy. And the thing with Call of Duty is, yeah, people buy that. They buy it for full price. They do so regularly. And even when other companies try to compete with Call of Duty by going free, guess what happens? People don't go to the free thing. They sample it and they pretty much immediately go back to Call of Duty. So of course they think they'll be able to get an extra $10 there. But for Microsoft, it's not just that. The knock-on effects of all of this play straight into another part of their strategy. So PC Game Pass and Ultimate subscriptions are still a major earner for Microsoft. And since the PlayStation audience doesn't have access to that service, it's either pay full price for Xbox's desirable games or move off Sony's platform to get them on the subscription service. So in a way, Microsoft are setting it up so that either one of their business models will win. That's the entire way they've architected everything.
Which goes back to my original point about if you truly care about providing a good service, you have to position yourself to do so. I actually think this is a great idea. Now, that being said, can we get more Doom Dark Ages? Like, we need better games. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter unless you get good games. Which, by the way, shout out, seeing some gameplay on Doom Dark Age. I mean, I already expected Doom to be good anyway, but man, does this game look good? I haven't played it yet, but the game looks fantastic.
Whereas for Sony, well, exclusives are their moat. The whole point of Sony making exclusives be their moat, the thing that is completely unique, was that you had to get a PlayStation console. And that's how Sony would basically continually be ahead. What Microsoft has done is, in a way, called their bluff by appealing to some of their own incentives. So to be fair to Microsoft, as much as they've done so much damage, they've actually been fairly smart in re-architecting their business. And that's what gets me to our final topic today, which is the future and how all this is going to shake out. Because let's be real, gaming in the next 5 years is going to be very different to, say, gaming of 10 years ago.
Because GTA. Well, GTA is going to kill anything that comes out in the next 2 years, really.
At this point, if someone working for Xbox marketing isn't working on a plan to get Game Pass deals out across every available platform to offer, the affordable new way to play games, then they're basically failing at their jobs. If stuff's going up in price, Game Pass just looks even better. If times are tough and you position yourself as the value king, that's pretty good. Even if it means that you're positioning yourself as the value king by hiking your prices and then offering a solution to the problem you just caused by
exactly my point. Thank you. Somebody said it.
hiking your prices in the form of Game Pass. But even Game Pass is likely to see a price rise in the future.
Oh, yeah.
We've all seen the patterns, and there have already been price increases. Last summer, Xbox rebuilt all their offerings for console players to encourage upgrading to the higher value tier. $20 a month for Ultimate and access to day one games is still a fairly good deal compared to an $80 upfront cost. But will we see another price increase this summer? If Game Pass's own history and other
100%. I think the thing is it's let's argue here. Okay. Let's argue that they have the good intentions, right? That they don't want to do, they're only going to do it when they absolutely have to. There is still a collection of games that haven't released yet that Xbox is, or that we know of, still working on. There's a lot that are still rumored. Right. So if those are going to release either next year or this year, they will have, like, let's say they were to release next year, they have to do the price hike now. Because you got to start anticipating that maybe some of these won't sell. You want to excite people to join now. Like, you want to start prepping the audience, but also yourself in case they're not as successful as they are. So there's just a large collection of games that haven't been released that we know exist or are being worked on. So no matter what, whenever those are going to release, I think a year before that, we're going to see the prices increase because it has to. Because they got to start making money on those games at some point.
Other subscription services or anything to go by, yeah, we absolutely should expect a price increase. And even with your additional benefits like your Xbox Play Anywhere and all those other things, I think it still would be a steep ask for customers in the coming months, right, as these games filter out.
Exactly. That's my point. Is like, even if you have those large collections of games coming, well, where are they? Like, if you're going to increase it now to prepare for the audience next year or even this year, at the end of the day, how they choose to navigate that whole situation, it's not the customer's fault, it's theirs.
At least they do have quite a lot of games coming. But for me, after going through their data, the main thing that stands out is the 45% growth for PC Game Pass. That's real strong growth. So they basically have a decision to make. Do they, in line with what they did over on console, re-architect that towards profitability and margin, or do they keep PC Game Pass as something that is still a ridiculously good value as compared to its console counterpart? I'd say right now, they know how far behind they are over on PC, so they're probably going to keep PC Game Pass, relatively speaking, the better deal. But no matter what way you slice it, across all of this, it comes back to their change business model, that it is all about games and lots of games. They just need their pipeline of games to come out like clockwork. And speaking of clockwork, there's Clockwork Revolution, you've got State of Decay, Perfect Dark. Keep all of that going while still looking for your Game Pass titles like your Blue Princes and your Expedition 33s, all to make Game Pass look like a deal so good you would be stupid not to buy it. But if you don't, well, they control the games that are really good, and you will buy them on your PlayStation. So yeah, who cares about selling Xboxes when they're caring about selling the thing that actually makes them money? At least that's their plan.
And I also think, unironically, this next console generation, they should ditch the S. Even though I think it's a good console, like value-wise, I think they should just get rid of it and stick to high-end hardware, especially if they're just going to up the price anyway. So to me, it's like, don't make it a premium. Like, you can even call it a premium console. Fuck it. I don't give a fuck. As long as you're like, hey, we're focusing on games and actually delivering on the games, then people won't care so much about the price of the console because they're only buying one. And they won't feel like they're being fucking robbed if there's actually games to play. So, and it doesn't even have to be exclusive games. It just has to be games that are actually using the hardware. No matter, that's my biggest gripe with the Series X. It's a console that has good potential, but there's literally not a lot of games that take advantage of every single core in that fucking thing.
In many ways it's smart, but let's be real, people are anxious about price. Life's actually pretty damn hard. Markets are changing,
of course,
etc., etc., etc. And that's why this next story stood out to me, because there's a sort of new business model that an ex-Blizzard Entertainment, in fact, a game that is published.
Oh, I know about that game. I think it's gonna do terribly. Look, I hate TV games. They're fucking retarded. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Am I overreacting? Am I too harsh on Xbox? All right, guys. Love you. Check out the next one. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you, actually, by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.